Ted Bundy. Theodore Robert Bundy was one of America's most notorious serial killers. He was charming, intelligent, and used his good looks to deceive his victims. Between 1974 and 1978, Bundy murdered at least 30 young women across 7 states, including Washington, Utah, Colorado, and Florida. He typically approached them in public places, pretending to be injured or an authority figure. Once he gained their trust, he would abduct them, rape them, and brutally kill them. He often kept their severed heads as trophies and returned to crime scenes to perform sexual acts on decomposing bodies. After escaping from custody twice, Bundy was finally captured on February 15, 1978, in Pensacola, Florida. A police officer pulled him over for driving a stolen Volkswagen Beetle. When the officer checked the plates, he discovered the car was stolen and Bundy was wanted. Inside the vehicle, police found credit cards belonging to his victims. At trial, bite marks on victim Lisa Levy's body matched his teeth perfectly, sealing his fate. On July 24, 1979, he was sentenced to death by electric chair. On January 24, 1989, at 7:16 a.m., Ted Bundy was executed in Florida's electric chair at Florida State Prison in Rayford. When the executioner pulled the switch, 2,000 volts of electricity surged through his body. He was pronounced dead minutes later. His remains were cremated, and his ashes were scattered in the Cascade Mountains of Washington, the same area where he had dumped several of his victims. John Wayne Gacy. John Wayne Gacy, known as the Killer Clown, was a respected community member in Cook County, Illinois. By day, he dressed as Pogo the Clown to entertain children at hospitals and charity events. By night, he was a monster. Between 1972 and 1978, Gacy tortured and murdered at least 33 young men and boys, most of them teenagers. He lured victims to his home with promises of construction work or money. Once inside, he would handcuff them under the pretense of showing a magic trick, then rape, torture, and strangle them. He buried 26 bodies in the crawlspace beneath his house, 3 more in his yard, and dumped 4 in a nearby river. The smell from his house was so strong that neighbors complained, but Gacy blamed it on moisture and sewage problems. His capture came after 15-year-old Robert Peast disappeared on December 11, 1978. The boy had told his mother he was going to see Gacy about a construction job. Police began surveillance, and on December 21st, they obtained a search warrant. When investigators entered his house, the putrid smell hit them immediately. Over the next week, they uncovered 29 bodies buried in the crawlspace. Gacy confessed to all the murders. On March 13, 1980, he was convicted and sentenced to death. On May 10, 1994, at Stateville Correctional Center in Illinois, John Wayne Gacy was executed by lethal injection. But the execution didn't go as planned. The chemicals clogged in the IV tube, causing the process to take 18 minutes instead of the usual 7. Witnesses said Gacy appeared to be choking and gasping. His last words to a prison guard were, "Kiss my ass." He was pronounced dead at 12:58 a.m. Jeffrey Dahmer. Jeffrey Lionel Dahmer, known as the Milwaukee Cannibal, was one of the most disturbing serial killers in American history. Between 1978 and 1991, he murdered 17 young men and boys, most of them minorities. Dahmer would meet victims at gay bars, malls, or bus stops, offering them money to pose for photographs or come to his apartment. Once there, he would drug them, strangle them, and then engage in necrophilia. But his depravity didn't stop there. He dismembered the bodies, sometimes keeping skulls and genitals as souvenirs. His reign of terror ended on July 22, 1991, when Tracy Edwards, a near-intended victim, escaped from Dahmer's apartment with handcuffs still dangling from his wrist. Edwards flagged down 2 police officers and led them back to apartment 213 at the Oxford Apartments. When officers opened the refrigerator, they found a severed head. The smell was unbearable. Dahmer confessed to everything immediately. At trial, his attorney argued insanity, but prosecutors proved he knew exactly what he was doing. On February 15, 1992, he was sentenced to 15 consecutive life terms. On November 28, 1994, while on cleaning duty in the prison gym bathroom at Columbia Correctional Institution in Portage, Wisconsin, Dahmer was attacked by fellow inmate Christopher Scarver. Scarver, a convicted murderer who was disgusted by Dahmer's crimes, had been left alone with Dahmer and another inmate, Jesse Anderson. Scarver beat both men to death with a 20-inch metal bar from the weight room. Dahmer suffered severe head trauma with his skull crushed. He was pronounced dead at 9:11 a.m. at a nearby hospital. Aileen Wuornos. Aileen Carol Wuornos was America's most infamous female serial killer. She had a traumatic childhood filled with abuse and turned to prostitution as a teenager. Between 1989 and 1990, she murdered 7 men in Florida. Wuornos worked as a highway prostitute along Interstate 75 and other Florida roads. She would solicit male drivers, and once in their vehicles or in a secluded area, she would shoot them with a .22 caliber pistol. After killing them, she robbed them, taking their money, vehicles, and personal belongings. Her first victim, Richard Mallory, was shot 7 times on November 30, 1989. Over the next year, 6 more men were found dead along Florida highways. On January 9, 1991, Wuornos was arrested at a biker bar called The Last Resort in Volusia County, Florida. Police had been tracking her after finding her fingerprints in several victim vehicles and pawned items belonging to the dead men. She was convicted of 6 murders and sentenced to death 6 times. On October 9, 2002, at Florida State Prison in Stark, Aileen Wuornos was executed by lethal injection. She was pronounced dead at 9:47 a.m. Her body was cremated.
Donald Harvey. Donald Harvey didn't look like a killer. Patients called him caring. For nearly 2 decades, he worked as a hospital orderly in Ohio and Kentucky. Between 1970 and 1987, Harvey murdered at least 37 people, though he later claimed closer to 87. He called himself an angel of mercy, but most victims weren't dying. Some were recovering, others simply annoyed him, so he killed them. His methods: arsenic and cyanide in IV bags, air injected into bloodstreams, ventilators switched off at night, pillows pressed over sleeping faces. For 17 years, nobody suspected a thing. How he was caught? March 1987. John Powell died after routine surgery. The autopsy smell was wrong, sharp, chemical. Tests confirmed cyanide poisoning. Investigators reviewed recent deaths. Harvey's name appeared again and again, the last person alone with patients before they died. When the FBI confronted him, Harvey broke immediately. He confessed to dozens of murders with the casual tone of someone recounting errands. He killed because patients were rude, because he was bored, because he felt like it. He pleaded guilty to 37 murders, life without parole. On March 30, 2017, Harvey was found beaten to death in his cell. He was 64. His cellmate confessed, said he did it because he simply felt like it.